I just wanted to introduce everybody to my friend Deb Brown here. Deb Brown and her partner, Becky, we go back years and years. We actually met first time up in Des Moines. Um, and have been colleagues, I guess, ever since, probably about 10 years now. And I haven't had the chance to work with her professionally on this project, but I've been jealous of the work that she's been doing for communities all across America, really. And she's got some great ideas and some great processes that I think we could all learn from. And it's all about the betterment of Jefferson City, the downtown district, to get some things into action here. And I think we've got some good framework that we're going to talk about today.
Well, thank you for having me, Gus, and thank you for remembering me. That's always important. And it's been a little longer than 10 years, just saying. So let's begin. I'm going to attempt to do this in 30 minutes. So I'll speak pretty fast. Hold on. Take notes. You will have a copy of this presentation. I am recording it, and you will also have the PDF of it. So let's begin. So what is the idea-friendly method? You start with your big goal for your community, and that's one that excites people, makes them feel like they can play a role in it. You can use that goal to gather your crowd and become a movement that people can get behind. You turn your crowd into a powerful network by building connections. And then you and your newly powerful network accomplish that goal together by lots of you taking small steps. So what is your big goal? In Akron, Iowa, the mayor held a Plant Your Flag party. They invited everyone in town who had ideas of what could be done in Akron, Iowa, not Ohio. It's a tiny little town, about 1,500 people. They had treats and drinks, and I came and talked about the idea-friendly project. Then people took a flag and put their idea on it. Now, folks could have their own flag, or they could join another group if they were interested in what they had. And it worked. Lots of great ideas came out of the event, and there was conversation, excitement, and small steps were already put in place at that first gathering. Now, out of that gathering, the youth that attended planted the first flag and decided they wanted to scoop the loop. These are high schoolers, and it sounded fun to them, and they'd never done it. So as you can imagine, the old timers came out and had some fun too. In a population of 1,500 people, they have since upped their restaurant count to 7. The Lazy H campground has grown by adding more cabins, activities, and more places to park RVs. They're adding a walking trail. The vet clinic expanded. An old home in the country was converted to a new lodge. The lumberyard was purchased and renovated by a young family, and there are more young families moving into the area all the time. You plant a flag because there are people out there who want to join you, but they've already been beaten down by the negativity, just like I'm sure you have. They need someone to start something idea-friendly. Author Clay Shirky says, the number of people who are willing to start something is smaller, much smaller, than the number of people who are willing to contribute once someone else starts something. Jason Roberts of the Better Block Project says that's always what happens when they choose to improve just one street in a neighborhood. They plant the flag and people come out of the woodwork to join them. You know, they were there all the time, just waiting for someone to get something started. And more importantly, they're waiting for someone to start it in this new idea-friendly way. We're not coming out of the woodwork for a typical old way opportunity because we've already been burned by those crushing formalities. You plant your flag to collect the people excited enough to take action in this new way. People who are willing to pitch in, even in small ways, are much more valuable than any number of people who are just serving because it was pinned on them. This is the old way versus the new way. I'm going to tell you a not so friendly, idea-friendly story. When I was the chamber director in Webster City, Iowa, I received lots of ideas on how to make my town a better place. One was to put up holiday lights in the trees downtown. I like the sound of that. It would encourage people to spend more time downtown, would be a visible sign of improvement, and maybe generate some pride in our community. So I called the city manager, who liked the idea too. He had the city crews assigned to put up the lights. Now, I thought I was building community, but I was still doing things the old way. The city manager and I had cut out everyone in the community out of the project. Now, how could I have created small but meaningful ways for people in the community to be part of lighting up downtown? Well, what if we let everyone pick a tree to decorate themselves? Just one tree. Now, all the trees wouldn't match, but really, who cares? People who chose a tree and decorated it would share pictures online. They would talk about the fun they had doing it together. It would actually be a lasting experience that they've shared together. Then the building owners could get inspired to decorate their downtown buildings with lights or whatever. Other businesses could decorate their windows. And I'm going to tell you, don't stop downtown. Let's involve the whole community. People could decorate their houses or put lights in the windows of their apartments. If you couldn't do anything else, could you drag a light into the front window for just one night? Each single light in the window shows someone who lives there that cares about their town. Get your pen and paper out. You're going to work a little bit. What is your big goal? What do you most want for your community? Now, not what you think you should want as part of your job necessarily, but what really gets at your heart. So in order to think about it, consider these two sentences, how you'd finish them. If our town had, or if our town was. And write that down. It'll take about 10 seconds, one word or one sentence, so you can come back to it in a few minutes. If I had Jeopardy music, I'd play it for you. All right, the next part of the idea friendly method is to gather your crowd. And you do that with your big idea, one that excites people and makes them feel like they are going to get to play a role in your big idea by taking small steps. Now, what would be the old way to gather a crowd to work on any idea? Of course, you assign people to committees. A real committee group actually sent out this email to their members. We are planning for our annual programs. Please see attached and let us know which committees you are willing to serve on. Thank you for your support. I know you've gotten emails just like that too, haven't you?
I was just going to say, I'm the only one that resembles that photo in this room.
Well, old committees used to be only men. Don't get me going down that path.
Right.
So the State and Sublimity Chamber of Commerce in Oregon, you know what they did? They killed off all their committees. Their new way is to gather people only when needed using their big goal. So Elena Turpin told us they are making a difference in the community. She said, then your organization becomes a movement that people can get behind, not just another volunteer opportunity. And there's a difference between please serve on our committees and becoming a movement that people can get behind. It's the difference between committees and activities. In Columbiana, Ohio, there was this boarded up window. It was ugly. No one could figure out why the owner didn't put in a new window. Well, the first thing I did when I got there was to go visit him and ask him, hey, why haven't you fixed the window? Instead of having a committee meeting to talk about what we were going to do about it, right? Turns out he was more than willing to fix it, but to spec to the new renter when he got one. In the meanwhile, the city manager pulled together a few bucks and hired a local artist to paint this scene on that boarded up window. And the secret was the artist did the work during a big event downtown, right where the window was. People stopped to watch him work, to chat with him, and they toured the building also. So you want to move from asking people to join organizations and committees to inviting them to participate in activities they might enjoy. So as you're thinking about how this applies to your idea, An important key here. When I say hold a gathering, I don't mean to start holding formal meetings with a president and minutes and accountability and treasurer's reports. Oh, good Lord. I don't mean that the chamber or economic development committee or the downtown group is in charge of them. I mean to get together with friends and do things, and then you grow from there. That's the idea-friendly way. It's informal. Yes, it's chaotic, but it's with a crowd of people connecting and getting things done. All right, back to your pieces of paper again. What would it look like if you had your crowd together around your big idea? So think about it now. Who's your crowd? Who would be interested in doing what you just wrote on your thing? I always think of friends and family, but sometimes it's other similar business owners that might be interested. It might be students. It's important to involve our students as soon as we possibly can. All right, you have gathered your crowd with your big idea. Now we're going to turn that crowd into a powerful network by building connections. Take a look at the old way. In Idaho, economic developer Jessica told us that she's dying to get a microbrewery in her town. So what would be the old way to build connections and get that brewery? Well, Jessica could present the idea at a meeting of her economic development board. Then they, of course, would take a vote, refer it to subcommittee, order a feasibility study. The expert would look at it, write it up, submit the feasibility study back to the subcommittee. The subcommittee would review it and, of course, take another vote and then refer it back to the board. The board would then look at it, take a vote on it, and maybe add it to their 5-year business development plan. Maybe then they'd be able to offer incentives or start trying to recruit an established microbrewery. Does your head hurt like mine does? Do you recognize this? I know you've seen it. Well, what's the new way? Why not start a home brew group? Bring together people who like to brew their own beer at home. Get them together in somebody's backyard. Let them share ideas and just talk. Now, you know what's going to happen. Yes, they're going to drink some beer. But after 3 beers, someone in that group is going to say, I could open a microbrewery. You might even know of one that started that way. A home brewer decided to make the leap. But this is a little different. Imagine how much more likely they'll be to succeed if they have a group of supported home brewers to encourage them, to help with connections to suppliers and other brewers who have made the leap, or the agencies and all the rules they'll have to deal with, or to work out problems, or even come and volunteer and help staff the microbrewery at the launch. Because they built connections, they will be more successful. So again, you've looked at the big idea, you've considered who your crowd is. Well, how could you get people together and actually do it, or do something related to it? So what is the equivalent of the home brew group that would support your big idea? Or what kind of connections do you need? And by the way, if you have questions for me, we're going to answer them at the end. Just make sure to make a note for yourself. Often this is where I hear about it. In the idea-friendly method, the next piece is to take small steps. And this is the best fun for me because you get to take action right away. Now, what would be the old way to take small steps in your traditional community leadership? Well, the first steps are hold a meeting and write a plan. You would meet and plan, talk everything over a few times. And those guys in the back looking over your shoulder would say, I think you should also do this. Or they might say, I don't think we should do that. The chamber said they might do something kind of like that, and we don't want to step on their toes. So you have to keep meeting until everything is planned out, watered down, and everyone agrees. Let me tell you about the Buy Local campaign in Franklin County, Iowa. The chamber started a Buy One Product Local campaign. We chose toilet paper as the one product because we all use it, hopefully. Did you know the average person uses 105 rolls a year? At the chamber, we did a year-long campaign using all the tools you can think of to get word out, both offline and online. We did posters and radio and TV, even created a special website. Then the local businesses got on board, and they just didn't do signs. Lots of them did creative displays. The hardware store went all out with a display from their plumbing department. They actually built a stick man out of PVC pipe and set him, you guessed it, on a toilet. Chamber Director Brooke and I made toilet paper displays that we took to every local event and fair and festival. 4,000 people in the town. Businesses who didn't sell toilet paper found creative ways to use toilet paper in their advertising. The used car dealer gave away a year's supply of toilet paper when you bought a car. The local radio station told toilet paper jokes. If I never hear another one, it would be too soon. Facebook was filled with stories of people shopping for toilet paper with pictures included. So while the campaign was going on, everyone in town was talking about toilet paper. They were redefining themselves as people who supported their town, all because they bought their toilet paper locally. Another story comes from Akron that we talked about before. One of their big ideas was they wanted to replace their old swimming pool. And of course, they started the typical capital campaign and people gave. But that's not something everyone can participate in. And not everyone has that kind of money to give. The students wanted to be able to give too. After all, they'd be the ones using the pool the most. 2 high school students from the National Honor Society came up with a way to get younger students involved. They went to the elementary grades and started a penny war between the classes. So a penny war means students bring in as many pennies as they can find, and the class with the most pennies at the end of the contest wins. The mayor said kids came up with all kinds of ways to find pennies, and they were having such a fun time doing it. Parents, grandparents, neighbors, businesses, and students all worked together to scrounge up pennies from all over town. Then they got together and counted their pennies, and you can bet every penny did matter. Each kid knew they played a small but meaningful part in replacing the pool. Now, small steps also means you don't have to do all the work. Let's look at 2 concerts. The first concert happened at an agritourism business in Oklahoma. They brought in a couple of professional musicians for performances out at the farm. The musicians were reasonably well known. They'd been on TV shows you've heard of, but turnout to the concerts really wasn't that great. And a friend of the owner took to Facebook and pointed out the classic small town contradiction. People keep saying there's nothing to do in this town, but then when we do put on something special, they don't turn out. And I know you've run into this too. You work really hard on events and things to do, then only a tiny crowd shows up. The community complains that it was boring or not at a convenient time or didn't sound like something they wanted to do. It's frustrating. The other concert happened in my town. 25-year-old Michael walked into my office and said, we needed to have more live music in town. And I responded with, you betcha, we sure do. What are you going to do about it? Well, that threw him. He just assumed the chamber would make it happen. We sat down that day and we talked about things like who were his friends who would participate with him and make it happen? What kind of event would they want to put together? What kind of equipment did they need? Where could they do this? Who could help with marketing? How would they start? Is there a smaller way to do this the first time? Well, he went back and gathered his crowd. Michael and his friends liked the idea of an open mic, and then they could be the band behind the performers. So Michael came back and asked me if that was okay. And you know what I said? I don't know. Is that okay? He was starting to understand this was going to be his and his crowd's event. They were building it together. So they created Music in the Park, and they involved a lot of people in small but meaningful roles. The guys designed their own posters and ads. Lots of people came with lawn chairs and listened to 3 hours of music. Several people came on stage and sang, played, and performed. One guy showed up from another town with lights and set them up so they could continue the music in the dark. Nobody asked him to come. He just heard about it and figured he could be helpful. And everyone had fun. It was decided that they were going to do music in the park 3 more times over the summer. The music brought together people from across different parts of the community. They shared the experience of making and enjoying live music together, and they all had a small but meaningful role in creating it. So you want to move from picking just one idea that you think is most likely to succeed to letting people try them all. Let me repeat that. You don't want to just choose one idea, you want to try them all. From deciding which ones you think will work to learning which ones are working by doing them in very small tests. Bolivar, Missouri tried a rock hunt, and in 7 days, they had 3,000 people join their Facebook group. It's kind of like the equivalent of the entire population of Bolivar. The city administrator said in an interview, if you set up 10 different things and said, which of these things do you think will spark the community and take off? I don't know if this is one I would have picked. And that's the point. We don't know which one idea will work. So there is no reason to set up 10 different ideas and vote or try to pick. Just let 10 people test out 10 ideas. You want to move from voting ideas to testing them. Main Street expert Jackie Wolven told us, when you vote, the same people tend to lose over and over. So quit voting and just let people test. You'll be learning which ideas work by actually doing them in very small tests. Now, I have a secret to having successful events. We are so used to being in charge and planning the entire event down to the who removes the garbage part. Here's the idea. Don't do that. Plan about 2/3 of it or less. Then put out the word you want people to share their ideas and add to the event. Of course, you'll plan out the locations for everything, but not what goes into all of those locations. During one large event, we never would have known about human foosball, but a local county church had a group of teens that had built the game. They wanted to set it up, and I said yes, not knowing what it was. Turned out to be the most popular thing at the event. Human foosball, who knew? I wouldn't have thought of barstool races either, but look at that crowd. And look at the Tony Tires banner. Someone thought of selling space to sponsors. My point is to let folks come up with ways to participate, and they will. All you have to do is say yes, and here's your spot. Not only will they come, but they bring their family and their friends too. Everyone wants to have some fun. All right, back to your paper. How can you make smaller, more meaningful ways for people to be part of your idea? And go ahead and write that down now. Oh, how encouraging to see people writing. Thank you.
Not looking at me.
You want IMDb
I'm
in
hiding
it.
some hiding back here.
Gus told me he had at least 50 ideas, so heads up. All right, let me share some idea-friendly stories with you. Several communities in Iowa decided they wanted more entrepreneurs. So they held an informal gathering called EntreBash. It was actually 3 counties that got together. Round tables were set up with one expert at each table, like an accountant, like a social media person, like a lawyer. And you could visit with the experts personally and only the expert you needed. The young Hispanic couple you see in the photo met with the Small Business Development Center lady, and they have since started their own greenhouse business in town. In Bennettsville, South Carolina, they hold a newcomers meeting pretty regularly. And what a brilliant idea to have the realtors personally invite their new customers to this gathering. They're given the opportunity to ask questions of representatives from the city and the county. Things like, where do I take my garbage? Can I burn my garbage, for example? Many of these people at the event I was at had ideas on how to better their community, and they were already in action. Several wanted opportunities to be involved. That means they wanted to volunteer. Start your own newcomers meeting. Painting murals using the paint by numbers method is a great way to bring more people into the process. In Webster City, Iowa, 4 groups, government, business, education, and a nonprofit, created a creative placemaking art project that everyone could be involved with. They picked a building with some boarded up windows on the 2nd story that they could use as a canvas for some art. Now, the building was owned by a Latina, and many of the businesses in the ground floor serve the Hispanic people and young people also in the community. An artist drew a simple paint by numbers design of colorful geometric shapes and colors, and each painting represented one part of the history of the town. They then took all the panels out to the fairgrounds and laid them out. Everyone in town was invited to come paint, even just a tiny bit. You could go for a few minutes or you could go for hours and be part of painting the designs. Of course, the local newspaper took pictures, and you could see the camaraderie created when people came together to make art. Now that the panels are installed over the boarded up windows, that building has become both a local and tourist attraction, and it's stunning. This is the Alva, Oklahoma Art Walk. Now imagine if you were to partner with Art Walk folks and offer to display some of the art in your store. Maybe leave it there just a little bit longer too. Special events like art walks or evening strolls give people a very specific reason and time to be out shopping, but they don't happen by magic. It takes community members and businesses working together to create them. Making the effort to be open during the events is better than staying closed. But if you really want to benefit, your stores can be a partner in these events. Have local artists display their work or have musicians perform in your store. Put out a few refreshments. Be a part of the celebration. To increase the appeal and draw more people downtown for Small Business Saturday, which will be here sooner than you know it, Morgan Hill, California created street scenes. Individual parking spaces in the heart of downtown were transformed by local businesses into activity areas. They have designated 5 adjacent parking spots for this one-day parklet. And this effort is all about creating a relaxing yet active vibe for downtown visitors. And you don't need an event to do this. You could set up a parking spot or 2 during the weekend or after school one day or anytime really. Promote it on social media and have fun. Yeah, you know, 2 seasons, winter and construction, right? That's the Midwest. And at some point there will be construction going on. You can create some great looking boards in front of it. Use quotes from your local people. Let the students be involved in the work. Make it fun. By using quotes from your residents, you're involving more people in your community. Here's just a few tips to help you make your transition to idea friendly just a little bit easier. Iowa State University studied 99 small towns for 20 years. In that time, those towns experienced every kind of change. What the researchers concluded is that no matter what happened or didn't happen, the towns that prospered the best were the ones that were open to new ideas and welcome new people into making decisions about the future of their community. Involve everybody. Here's a favorite of mine. Stop doing things you don't need to do anymore. Kill the old events that are no longer working. And you don't have to do all the events. Now is a great time to say to your community, we simply can't put together all these events this year. And then ask them what events they would like to take over. You don't have to do them. You're going to kill them. But if somebody really wants it, tell them to do it themselves. Get out of the meeting room, please. City Hall or county chambers or the boardroom kind of feel oppressive as I talk to people in a boardroom. Have you noticed that? The whole formality and weight of the past can just make you frown as soon as you step inside. If you're having a meeting about anything to do with downtown, wouldn't it make sense to do that where you can look around and see the downtown? You know, where you stand on the issues depends on where you sit. The location affects the conversation. Sitting in the council chambers or an old meeting room, you're too far removed from the life and activity that you're trying to create. Sitting outside downtown, you get to be part of the scene. You get a chance to do that and to think about the potential for improvements. While you're outside, you want to be conspicuous doing your thing. It's one thing to like your idea when you're sitting behind your computer in your house. It's another thing to be doing it out in the real world where people can see you. It shows a level of commitment. And it's even better if you're not the only one doing it. You know, nothing draws a crowd like a crowd. Make people slow down to get a look. Make them curious. Get them to stop and ask what you're doing. Then you've got a chance to share a bit about your If Our Town big idea and the small but meaningful way they could be a part of it right now. Do just a tiny part of your idea, then take the small steps from there. And here's some tiny step ideas. One idea we've all heard about is the community dinner that closes down Main Street. You know the kind of dinner I mean. Shut down the whole Main Street with everyone in town sitting down to eat together at a long table. Well, you can take a small step and try it out. Start with 2 card tables on the sidewalk and just a few friends. In Harlowtown, Montana, the citywide garage sales got started by the junk shop during their slow time. It's now advertised regionally and managed by the chamber. It's been a huge economic impact for them. So another problem is that officials may not give you approval for your idea. Asking officials for approval is a terrible way to try to start an idea. They don't know if it'll work, and they have no incentive to say yes yet. So start smaller in a way that doesn't require permission yet. If you need city approval for food trucks in the street, start smaller. Invite 2 food trucks to park in the parking lot around back where you don't need any approval. And then this is the important part, track the results. Were the restaurants still busy? Did the nearby stores see more activity? Did people come and eat from the food trucks? So now you have some results from your test, and you can take those results to the city council to ask for permission to try a bigger version. You want to entice rather than convince. And the last problem I want to talk about today is opposition. The one committee that every town has, no matter the size, is the Committee of Negativity. For all the effort put into creating a shared vision and reaching consensus, there is no town where every single person agrees on everything. It's not possible because towns are made up of human beings. You know, actually negative people, some of them think they're helping. They're helping you not fail. They're warning you about past failures, bad things that might happen. They want to help your community, but they just don't have the right tools to do it. Well, you can try small tests to show them how your big idea is already working. But I tell you, don't spend too much time trying to convince them. And just remember this, you can't lose people who were never yours. Every bit of energy you put into fighting the opposition is really hurting your entire community. Put that energy into positive action instead. All right, you've already started your idea-friendly journal. The notes you made today are idea-friendly notes. You've got that big idea that's going to improve the quality of life in your community. You know how to gather your crowd, and I know you've got to be terrific at building connections. Now you just have to take the small steps and starting with just one. All right, let's talk a little bit about the idea-friendly toolkit, and then I'm done. You'll see a watch party. We always encourage people to invite others to watch the first video with you. And that first video is the idea friendly method, 30 minutes that Becky and I have done together to talk a little bit more about it. And then you want to use the idea friendly principles in your current work. How can you use some of those principles you've learned today and what your current work is? The next video is idea friendly next steps. So you've heard about idea friendly, you think it's a great thing. Now what? How do we get started? What? Idea friendly? Now what? We encourage you to use the newsletters as a guide. You can use those. You can share them as a jumping off point to have discussion. The third video is idea friendly officials and boards. And yes, they can be idea friendly too. Now, you're currently thinking of your community, but why not think regional and take idea friendly to the next level in your region and your state? You also have access, you have a megaphone membership, you have access to all the videos that we've done. And we encourage you to choose some that appeal to the particular challenge you're dealing with. You'll receive, you should already have it, a creed. You want to print it out, put your city name on the bottom of it, and use it to guide your actions. If you do that and hang it somewhere, send me a picture so I can share it too. And there's an action guide include that's a little help along the way. And you do all of that and complete the toolkit and you get your own certificate. So how'd I do? We're all done. Thank you. Are we ready for questions?
And this toolkit is what Carrie
Yes.
emailed out earlier this week, so you should
And-
all have access to it if you haven't.
And at
access
the
to
very least, I'd really love everybody to look over video 3. For me, I'm sometimes a bad auditory learner, and it's really helpful that they have the transcripts on there too, because you can read through it. And then they have the video and just separate audio. So any way that you prefer to take in information, but the video 3 about specifically how boards can take this method and apply it was really helpful for me, because I heard the first 2 videos and was like, this all sounds well and good, but we're a board. How do we, we're not flexible, you know? So it was kind of an interesting video to help me think about how we could, implement some of these ideas.
Excellent. And you're right that I like to listen to the audio because I like podcast. I drive a lot. So I listen to our own stuff quite a bit because it's good for me to know it, right?
Oh, yeah.
There is video as well and the transcript if you'd rather read it.
Do we have any questions? No?
What are some, Deb, what do you think, or what have you seen to be some recurring ideas from multiple communities of all different sizes?
So artwork, doing creative kind of work in your community, murals is a big one, filling empty buildings, trying to make your downtown look cleaner, are all pretty common things we see a lot of. Some towns have one building owner that owns, I don't know, a block's worth of empty buildings. So figuring out how to work with that owner, or to, at the very least, you start with, just go wash the windows. It's not like he or she is going to tell you to unwash them. And it's amazing what sweeping the sidewalk and washing a window can do. And when you bring your crowd together about trying to figure out how to do things, maybe you want a pop-up celebration of something. Those empty buildings are perfect for that. To just ask the owner if you could use the front third of the building just to do a little pop-up in for one night. To kind of have, or if that's too big a step, do it on the sidewalk in front of the building. Just keep making each step smaller. People want to be involved. People want to do things. They want to try these small ideas out. You have to ask them. You have to make room for them to be able to do that. And the next time somebody comes to you, we should do an event around, I don't know, learning to speak German. Don't say no, even though you may want to. I would. But the question becomes, what would that look like? What kind of things would you want to do? What is it that you need? Who are your friends that are going to help you plan it? Just really get them into action. It may or may not work. You might be surprised. You might have 40 German people in town that you got downtown because somebody did an event about it. And 40 people, even in a town with 40,000 people, 40 people downtown, experiencing the downtown, that matters.
Speaking of, Deb was the one, I'll give you credit, that invented the Hidden Spaces tours. You did the first one in Webster City, and I thought it was awesome. And I shared it with Stephanie Bell back 10, 11 years ago. And so she's the mother of Hidden Spaces tours.
You guys called it Hidden Spaces. I love it. We called it the Empty Buildings Tour. And I came up with that idea when I didn't know any better. Brand new chamber director and knew I had to fill those buildings somehow. So let's show them off. Why not, right? It worked. It worked. In 18 months, 10 of the 12 buildings on the tour were full and are still full today with some kind of business in them.
Including your theater, right? Is that-
Yeah, we saved our movie theater. It closed my first week on the job. Jesus, right? Privately owned, right? A group of us got together, formed a 501c3, again, because we didn't know any better, figured let's just try it. And over 16 months, we raised $250,000 to save the theater, to buy it, to upgrade to digital, and to hire staff, which we thought, and of course renovate it, which we thought was extremely important, because it's okay to start with volunteers, but after 6 months, nobody wants to work at the theater. So we just figured let's start with staff and contribute to economic development in our community.
And Deb, is it okay if so we'll obviously encourage everyone to sign up for the newsletter, but if we share your contact information for any questions, posts, if people think of them, ruminate over them?
Absolutely. Send me an email. That's the best way to reach out to me. Definitely. And you may see the conversation in a newsletter somewhere down the line too. Good questions need to be shared. Good questions and answers need to be shared. It's how we learn from each other. So who's the young lady across from Gus?
Diane?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, how can I help you?
What did you write down as your big idea?
I would like to see the buildings downtown filled up, the vacant buildings.
So how long is your downtown? How many blocks is your downtown? Your actual downtown?
3, that block and this.
100,
3, almost 4.
Our district is a little wider than
Yeah.
that, the downtown district, but the main walkable part, people consider to be 3 to 4 blocks.
Yeah.
So you have access to our videos. Go watch the one on how to fill empty buildings. The majority of our videos are under 30 minutes long. Who's your crowd? Who thinks like you as well?
Me?
Yeah, I'm still with you.
I think all of us feel that way. Yeah, I think we all want to get more businesses and more retail down here instead of so many, instead of so many businesses. But some
So,
retail.
So many lobbyists.
Yeah. Yeah.
well, yeah, sorry about that,
Yeah.
right?
As we meet in one's office building.
The heavy weight of the building, right? Who are your entrepreneurs in town? Who's doing stuff in their garages and second bedrooms? Do you have any idea about that?
I wrote down the young professionals I thought would be a good group to reach out to.
That's a great connection, yes.
Yeah.
Artisans, I wondered
Yeah.
about the art,
Art
we have
groups.
Couple City Arts
Yep,
and,
I agree
people
with
that
you.
are, just they like art or they're Etsy or, where are they?
Well, at one point in time, we had talked about, so we had done the Hidden Spaces tour for several years and it was so successful that we ran out of empty buildings. So
That's a
it
good
kind of went
problem.
away. And now a lot of them are back. And so we had talked about at one point, what are the roadblocks? Like, what are the hindrances for people to open up space down here?
Yep.
And the high rent was one of them. And we had looked at somewhere in Kansas City, we had
Yeah.
talked about where they had done like the first 6 months was rent free or like holiday pop-ups or that to like get people in there and making money and then paying rent. I feel like that was like before COVID.
And you
Yeah,
don't
that
have
was-
to have
yeah.
one business for one building. You could put 4 businesses in one building. Your Etsy creators is a good example to do a shared space. And that
Right.
also can elongate the hours that they're open as well. Makes me crazy when businesses close at 5 o'clock because I work till 5 o'clock. I don't have any way to do the shopping I want to do. And being open later is really important. Hope I didn't hit a sore spot for anybody, but there you have it.
Very true. All of our people here are open.
Well, that's what they were thinking about doing with the Sappy's building, but then the whole issue came up with restrooms were only on the second floor, so the city wouldn't let them.
Need a plumber.
So how much is a porta potty?
Oh, it's gonna be.
Set up in the
There
alley.
you go.
I mean, check into it,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We did the incubator project, which was the first 3 months free rent, reduce rent the rest of that first year. And the tenant paid the utilities. And then what we added on is the Small Business Development Center worked with the tenant to create a business plan while they were in business. So when it came time in a year, if they were still decided to stay, they had those facts and figures they needed to create a working budget that made more sense to the people that wanted to loan them money versus just coming in and saying, I have this idea, I want to sell XYZ, and you have no idea if it's going to work or not. But having that year to try your idea out is a good thing to do. And the chamber, we help them teach them marketing and put them in front of ways to learn more about marketing, offline and online. As much help as you can do matters. Okay, so the second lady in the room, I'm horrible with names, I apologize now. So the green top lady was the first lady, the woman right next to her, to her left,
Lauren.
with the silly putty stuff, right?
Therapy dough.
Therapy dough, love it. So what was your big idea?
Oh God. I don't have one. My brain is kind of overwhelmed, hence the therapy dough. So pass. Come back to me later.
No, let's talk about therapy dough. Do you have other
Okay.
products like that? Let's talk about your product line. What's your product line?
Well, I have a flower shop, flower and gift. And this is one of the new items I just brought back from Atlanta. I didn't realize that I needed it until a lady gave me a little piece, and then 6 hours later, I still had it in my hand.
I go, oh,
So-
shoot, I guess I did need that.
Yeah.
So what could you do around your big idea being promoting the new things you brought back from Atlanta, starting with therapy dough? That's a good big idea. So who's your crowd? Obviously the people you work with, right?
My crowd,
Mm-hmm.
Right, just say.
people that like flowers and gifts.
Yes. And gifts.
That would be fun to all the new things I got back from Atlanta have some kind of
I think you could have a
new
sip and
party.
show.
Yes,
Sip
yes,
and
and
show.
show. Yeah.
Because,
Here,
you know,
introduce
you'll
my
have
new 10
wines
lines.
and things at your
Yeah.
flower shop and a sip and show.
Yes.
Real casual, low key, and it could be, you know, these
Yeah.
are things I brought back from market and promoted on your Facebook and things.
Yes. Well, I'm just not here to promote my flower
No.
shop. We need to think of, ideas for.
But it could be any business
Downtown.
is where I'm going with that.
Got it.
Yeah, do a fashion show. And it doesn't have to be with clothes. It could be fashion with flowers. It could be,
Okay.
A new gift kind of party. Have that. Christmas is coming. You'll start doing promotions, hopefully in September around holiday buying. People are starting a lot earlier these
Yes.
days.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
So promoting those new products that you brought back is a great idea, friendly, small step that you could take.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's just go on around the table as long as you got me. We got about 12 minutes left.
So our meeting actually ends at 4 and there is a couple things that we have to discuss. And
Well,
so
thank
I don't
you
know that
then.
we'll be able to go all the way around the table. Just because I have to. I know, There's a couple things we have to discuss. But are there any other questions for Deb? Do we have any others? I'll be
Am I-
reaching out because I have some questions ahead of our half-day board retreat. So
Excellent.
expect an email from me because I had a lot of fun reading those transcripts. And I think everybody wants to thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
Thank
Thank
thanks
you.
for setting this
Thank
meeting
you.
up.
And thank you, Gus. Thank you. Enjoy.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Deb.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.